Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello,
This is
hello.
my second foray into coming on here today. I'm glad to have Jen with me. Look, we kind of match, don't we, girl? We do.
Yes. Oh
We got
my
some
goodness.
blue.
It's a
Ah,
mess, but
really nice. Yeah.
yeah.
So welcome, Em and Sherry and Sharon Sipe, and I'm glad you're here. And anybody else who's in the chat? Yeah.
We'll see if we can get them.
So I was fascinated by this, and I'm probably late to the boat. Hi, Sag, Sun and Moon. um,
Hey.
I I didn't realize that there were so many podcasts and movies and stories about this. And did you know that? Yeah.
Um, I, yes, actually, because
Okay.
um, it's been a mystery for years, and
Yeah.
if you're into Sasquatch like I am, Bigfoot, then
Okay. We're gonna hang on.
yeah.
Okay. There you go. You did freeze for a minute, so that's
Oh,
okay. That's all right.
it's
But
probably my cable
or
again.
it's mine. I actually was in the middle of talking to Maya today, and I got booted out. So I heard her
Oh,
say she'll be back.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way
Yeah.
it is. Hi, Lynn, Patty, Chris Ann, Chris
Hi,
Creations. Nice.
Lynn.
Thank you. Oh, Anne Marie's here. Hi, Anne
Oh,
Marie. Thank
Anne-Marie.
you.
Hi, Angel Star Karma.
So, um, what compelled me to want to talk about this was the new movie that's out, the documentary, and I know you just watched it, and it's an unknown compelling force. And so, because you have been looking at this so long, Jen, did you feel like this was really one of the better examinations of this particular phenomenon? We'll tell you what it is too. We will.
Yeah, actually, I
Yeah.
did. I really like how they picked each of the theories apart and
Okay.
examined them and actually matched the forensic evidence with the injuries
Right.
on their bodies, with the tent, the rips in the tent, and, which
Right.
way the pieces of fabric were, which way they were pointing, was
Pointing.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
where they
From
slashed
the
inside,
outside or the inside. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
and the crush injuries were explained more. And looking at like all of the other documentaries, the crush injuries that happened on the hikers' bodies, the four that were, there were three in the ravine in the river and
Right.
decomposing it, and they had the most severe crush injuries.
They did.
And
Yep.
and it was just in all other documentaries, it's been really convoluted. And so
Yeah.
it was
Well,
wonderful how well they broke it
how well
down.
they put it all together. All right. So those of you who are not aware of what this is about, in 1959 there were, I believe, eight hikers. Or actually, there were nine, and one had to turn back before they got to this place called Dyatlov Pass. I'm saying it wrong. Is it da,
Dyatlov.
Davilov Pass? I think it's a guy's
No,
last name. Actually,
right. It's
that was one of the
Dyatlov is the hiker. He was one of the hikers, but he
that
was the
like the head
leader.
hiker, yeah, the leader,
Yeah, it was
right?
like
So they
his
named it after him,
expedition. Yeah.
right? So first of all, we got to look at the idea that this is 1959. Now, although it was 61 years ago, they didn't have any of the stuff that they have today. Of course, they don't have the forensics, and it's right in the middle of the Ural Mountains in February, and it's cold, and then you also had the Soviet government running things. So that's got a lot to tell you about why this wasn't really looked at earlier, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
can't. I mean, they just wanted to bury this thing as fast as they could.
Hmm.
There was a group of people that live up there, and they welcomed these people, even though they were questioned, and there was some thought that they may have done this thing to these kids because they were found. They had slept in a tent, oh, I can't even imagine how cold that must have been. And
I
they
mean,
didn't
mine
have the
was
warm,
46.
yeah, and they didn't have the warm clothes or anything really like we have today, you know. They were in a regular, like an army tent. The tent was found with rips in it, and the people were gone. They found them in different places. One of them, all of them had bare feet, I believe, very thin shoes, no coats. So it looked like whatever happened, they were running from something.
Yes.
One of the people on there took lots of pictures of all of them, and it was very nice to see that these young people were enjoying their time, let's say, with each other, and they were very interested in finding out things. But the real thing that was uh, one of the things that was missing was there were three people found, and they found them like what, 2 weeks later? Was it 2 weeks later? I think so. They were
Well,
buried under the snow.
a couple months.
I'm sorry,
There,
a couple months. Oh, okay.
there were 9 hikers, and 4 were found a couple
Four were
months
found. Okay.
later. Yeah,
I have
like
to hold
they
on to
found
this
them in
one. I'm sorry.
stages as there's April Joy. They found them
Yeah,
in stages as they moved down the
they
mountain.
did.
Yeah.
Right. But the ones that were found that were near the trees and so forth, they looked like they were trying to make their way back to their campsite, but they never did make it. But the three that were found
The
in
ravine.
the ditch or the ravine were buried. They had crushed chests.
Yeah.
They had some of their eyeballs missing, and
Yeah.
the young girl that was in it had her tongue missing, right?
And her eyes. And
And her
um
yeah,
and there were 2 females, and one of the girls had burn marks on her
that's
body.
right.
They were like,
Yep.
what is that? And
Yes,
some of the 3 of them had radiation in their clothing,
that's right.
radiation
They
on
had
their body.
radiation in their clothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, there were all kinds of theories running around about aliens. This is where the radiation come from. And,
Right.
on their camera roll, when they developed it, there was these interesting lights up in the sky that they took a photo of, and they were trying to figure out
What it
what
was.
that is.
Yeah.
So they thought it was aliens. And then there was a photo of, to me, I know what Bigfoot looks like. And there's
Yeah.
one picture of a bipedal figure in the distance, kind
Right.
of peering around a tree, but he has a coat on. I mean,
Right.
no,
It's fuzzy. It's fuzzy.
but
You
it's
can't
fuzzy.
see.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. And we're
But
talking black and white picture probably too from the 50s.
yeah.
So,
So,
but you see all these other pictures, and you kind of, oh my God, it's Sasquatch. Yeah.
right. And
But it
that's
isn't.
where,
Yeah.
in the Sasquatch community, this is really,
Uh-huh.
it occupied many, many years of investigation. And, but
Hmm.
this documentary was so compelling because they showed the actual evidence and kind of how things became
Right.
distorted. And maybe it would be
Uh-huh.
just, they were so good in detailing their diaries that,
Yes. That's
they
true.
could see how things became really distorted out here in the public, which were
Yeah.
just really
Yep.
just very simple explanations for, um,
Yeah. And they
yeah,
went back to documents. They went back to what do you call it? When they did autopsies, they went back to a lot of, and they have pictures of everything, even though
right?
they're antiquated by what we look at these days. But what
Yeah,
really impressed me was the guy that was the documentary filmmaker deciding that he's going to go back and re-walk and go
yeah,
up that pass.
yeah,
And it was amazing. And he was afraid they would get really upset because he was over in Russia and he was digging into things, because we already know we have some issues over there. So, but he
hmm
did find a really reliable man to take him up there.
hmm
And he was able to talk with those natives that were up there that the kids had stayed with, and
hmm
ask them questions. They weren't the people that were there, but they were relatives of the people
right,
that were there, I think.
right. of the Muncie
But the
Indian. Yeah,
woman that was in the video, that they interviewed up there, that, you know, she looked like an Eskimo. I mean, that's the best way to explain it.
yeah, yeah.
She's my age, and I thought, oh my God, I hope I don't look that bad.
Well, I mean,
Well, she's out in the
they look
elements, you know.
very hard life, you know. I mean, the average
Oh yeah.
temperature is like minus 46. I mean, it's just,
Oh,
I mean, who would go on a hiking expedition in that kind of wet? That's just
I mean,
incredible.
I don't
They
even know
were,
how the documentary guy would agree to go up there, no
yeah,
matter what time of year it was. And I
yeah.
really don't. Of course, isn't I guess on that side, February is their summertime. I'm guessing, because
Oh,
I'm not 100% sure. I know that right now Australia this is their winter.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It depends because it's way up in the Urals. Um,
yeah.
interesting.
It's right
Yeah,
there in the Arctic
interesting.
Circle. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
So, yeah, so there were
I
many theories, you know. There was the aliens because they saw the
yes,
craft, you know, in that one photo of, you know, many lights. But then they interviewed one of the Muncie indigenous people that lived up there, and he was five
right,
years old, and he said, I didn't realize what I was watching because they are so excluded. I mean, they are just
sure,
so
sure,
isolated
yeah,
away from
uh-huh,
civilization. I didn't
sure,
understand what I was watching until he saw on TV the launch of a rocket. And back
right.
then, you know, Russia
Ooh, that's
had an
weird. Yeah,
incredible, you know, space program. I mean, and bombs, and, you know, they were
right,
always launching
right.
things
They
in the
were, and as the
40s.
Soviets, they were even more secretive than they were after the Soviet Union. Because I don't know, when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, and I'm sure that even in your age group, we weren't able to know what was going on in Russia. There was a great big secrecy around everything, and
Yeah,
you know, we
yeah,
didn't talk.
Iron Curtain.
Yeah,
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 absolutely. And of course,
yeah,
now we have some problems there still where we can't get in there and find out things we'd like to know.
yeah,
But at that time, that would have been very serious. Yeah, it would have been very
yeah,
serious.
yeah.
Um,
And
so go ahead. Yeah.
oh, I was
So
just the
there's, but
theory.
there's been podcasts, the theories, and I felt like this guy really, like you said, this guy really wrapped this up in a really well packaged uh,
Yeah,
presentation. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know, because all of the theories, the conspiracy theories, and, you know, they thought, oh, it was an avalanche. And he debunked how,
Right.
I mean, the government for a
That
while, I
wasn't
mean, back in 2018, came out and said that it was
right.
an avalanche and it was hypothermia that took them out. And, you know, he
Hmm.
debunked that. He was like, there is no gradient greater than 45 degrees. And you need that to have an avalanche for snow to be sitting. And, you know, I mean, it was essentially like a hill. It wasn't a mountain pass that they were on, a face, you know.
Right. Right.
And then the Americans came. It was American spies that came and killed them. I mean, yeah,
Right.
minus
Yeah.
46,
Yeah.
way up in the Arctic Circle.
Or even that it was the Soviet army because they would see
Yeah,
something that was going on up there. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It
And
was a violation. Yeah,
now they did say though that at that time apparently there was some kind of a celestial event that was going on up there.
yeah.
Whether that was a comet or a, you know, whatever it is at the time, you know, and so they think that that might have been also the lights that were shown
Hmm. Hmm.
in the picture. And
Yeah.
so that kind of debunked that idea, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I just find it fascinating that, um, you know, it's really a lot of fun to go back and see if you can find out an unsolved mystery, you know, go in and
Oh,
get the information and figure it out. Yeah.
yeah.
But
Solving it right
I, yeah, but you know, you have to kind of think to yourself, well, we only can go, I mean, they did have some papers, but we can only go by what we can find. And some of the paperwork, I believe, wasn't some of the paperwork kind of iffy as well? Do you remember
now.
that? Yeah. like the general that signed off on it or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
what they thought was a signature was really on something else, and it just,
Right.
yeah, it was a lot
Yep.
of forging, and
Yep.
they just kind of fudged it, and,
Yeah.
actually went
Makes
back into
it really makes you wonder. It makes you wonder about a lot of things, I think, because we think the furthest out thing, like the Sasquatch or the aliens or whatever, because you can't explain it, and you can't explain it really in 1959 even more so than you can now, because sometimes now there's things out there that allow for that.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
it is sketchy, but one of the things that happens, and I don't want to spoil the movie if everybody wants to go see it or watch it. You can watch it on Prime. It's about $5, I think, to rent it. And
Mhm.
the end is something. Had they considered those people before, Jen, till now?
Which,
The ones that ended up
no,
doing it?
no,
Yeah.
the Conti, they're Conti. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I'm just kind of getting a hit here, so I just want to throw some
Okay. You do it.
credits.
I'll shut
Um,
up.
no, it's okay. I I've been chewing on this, and yesterday I was at the river, and I was really
Ooh.
because I have this new, information, and truly,
Right.
this has been one of the things that this has been an unsolved mystery that's really huge for me, just because of
Sure.
the Sasquatch connection, and
I know. And that's
like,
why I thought you should come on. Yeah.
well, it's huge in the Sasquatch community that it was Yeti that killed these people, and I just know they are not violent like this. They don't rip people apart and throw them and crush them and take their
Right.
eyes, and their
Yep. Hmm.
yeah. So well, Ten of Swords, yes. A lot of pain here. This was, oh, sorry.
Oh, it
This
must have
was,
been horrific. Yeah.
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
horrific murder.
Uh-huh.
And Six of Wands, um inverted. So yeah, this is a very overlooked. That's what this would be, inverted. It would be an overlooked solution to this whole scenario that happened. Behind it is the
Right.
Hierophant. I get that
Mm-hmm.
this was a murder that was like, it was a spiritual. I bet you it was the indigenous folks. I had visions about it, but it's
Yeah.
just really clear that it is. It's the indigenous. It was like a spiritual shamanic experience. There
I
was the
believe so.
Munsee tribe. The Munsee tribe is the indigenous group that lives up there, the Siberian indigenous group. But there's also the Khanty, the Khanty group, and
Right.
they are more, I'm not saying this. This is how they refer to them, as the savages
Savages. Yeah.
that they gain ascension through sacrifice and murder. Yeah, because
And there's
in
not many of them, right? It's a small group of warriors, I think. Yeah. Uh-huh.
exactly, and
Yeah. Uh-huh.
what I'm saying is it was a small group. It wasn't. They were nomadic. It was just like maybe 5, 6, 7
Right.
folks that were they were nomadic, because up in that area, that was one thing. The Munsee said that this is our sacred area. There are many caves up here where they practice their shamanic rituals. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are caves that they go in. There's several mountains and several spiritual sites that they go to, because
Right.
remember that they saw structures,
Uh-huh.
like teepees with sticks and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like the two tribes, but the Khanty are more grounded, like in their shamanic beliefs. They're
Probably
more,
felt like they were being intruded upon too, right?
yeah,
That this was
yeah,
their sacred land. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? It's like the Muncie
I
are
do.
more, they merge, they work well
They
with the
merge
Russian.
better. Right. That's
They
right.
don't, because remember in the 30s, they they had like a war. It was kind of like how Scotland, England went into Scotland and said no,
Right.
to the Highland culture.
Uh-huh.
That,
Right.
but they did the same thing with the Munsee
Mm-hmm.
and the Cunty people, and they wiped
Uh-huh.
out a lot of the Cunty people, that
Right.
tribe.
Right.
So, um,
So
yeah,
they had these poles that were put up, and didn't the Muncie say that they saw the pole shift after disruption in wildlife, vegetation, hunting and fishing and so forth? Because these kids came in. I'm guessing these kids were just, innocently doing what they were doing, not thinking at all about anybody there that would be disrupted by anything. Um,
yeah. I feel it. They were in very sacred ground. They were,
and
they were
Yep,
truly like in a place they shouldn't have been. The Muncie people
correct.
knew, but the Muncie people didn't want to tell the Russian, the
Right,
investigators.
right. No, and they just flew in. Those people flew in, but they wanted to get it taken care of really fast too. And. Um,
Mhm.
so somebody asked a question: why did they go out without their shoes and their coats and all that? What was posited was first that they thought that the kids cut themselves out of the tent because they were disturbed by something. But now it was found after you look at the way it was ripped that they were they were cut
They
into
were being,
basically,
yeah,
and they had
yeah.
no time to put shoes on, coats on. They were, and although I wondered to myself, if I was out there, I wouldn't take those clothes off me because I want to stay as warm as I could. But you can't argue with what other people do. But they just ran like deer in the headlights, and
Yeah, well, the Conti people were like, "Oh my gosh, perfect
yeah,
sacrifice." They were in
especially
the
the
human
girl's tongue.
form.
I found that was so interesting. That
Yeah,
had something to do with power or something. Yeah,
over
yeah.
females, right? Isn't that what we
True.
do with our females?
Yep.
We cut off
Yep.
their,
We
yeah,
cut their tongues.
their
Yeah,
tongues and
absolutely.
breasts off, and yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, because one of her breasts was cut
Also
into.
cut. Okay, I didn't realize. Um, I bet they did that too before she was killed. I mean, I'm sure they just did it, and the terror that this woman must have had was horrendous. What
Yeah,
did you remember them saying about the crushing? Did they ride over them on their horses over them or something?
that's what
Or
I see, because they were on those huge
okay.
reindeer alley. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
see them coming down that, and they're chasing them in that deep snow,
Right.
and I just know, I know that they rolled
Yeah.
over them
They just rolled
in the
over them,
ravine,
and
because
that
that
would be a
was,
lot of weight. Yeah, be a
yeah,
lot of weight.
because
Yep.
they're much bigger than horses.
Yep.
They're
They are.
ginormous.
Sure. Um, JLo says the photo on National Geographic story has an orb present. The orb, is that the picture that you're talking about that looks like three sort of
Yeah,
white lights? I'm
yeah,
not sure if that what she's talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
But talking to the gentleman who was 5, but he saw
Right.
that. He saw it looked exactly when the rocket was being launched on TV. He saw, oh,
Ah, yes.
exactly like what I
Yeah.
saw. And
Sure.
they showed a picture and
Sure.
described it.
So he put two and two together and he got that it
Yeah,
was that. They
yeah,
did find out that the radiation was from two jackets from two men who had worked in a nuclear disaster or in a nuclear zone. And
yeah.
one of the girls had worn it for a while. So there were three of them with it, but one of them got it by just wearing it, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the third worst nuclear disaster.
That we
You
never knew about. I never even knew
know,
about it till I watched. Yeah, it was never talked because of this. It was Soviet. Yeah, it was all.
they
It was
just
during
hide
that Soviet.
everything,
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
They just
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, nothing came in or out of that place. I mean, I don't even know how Americans got, if they did indeed get in there. I don't know how they did because it was almost impossible for anybody to go into Russia or go out of Russia at
Yeah.
that time. So, some of the things just don't make sense. But, I think it's really cool, though, that so many people wanted to show what they believed happened. I mean, yes, it wasn't true, or, but it was kind of, and I think maybe it's because it's only one of, let's say, Russia's little secrets or unsolved mysteries.
Hmm.
Not, I mean, we have a ton of them. All you have to do is pull up the Discovery Channel, and there's a hell of a lot of people having a hell of a bad day. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, what do you think they buried them, or do you think maybe there could have been um, a an avalanche afterwards that covered them? Because they were down, weren't they down about 6 feet, something
uh,
like that?
yeah, they were in a ravine, but yeah, the avalanche theory kind of went out the window because they found the flashlight was
Right.
thrown on top of the tent
Uh
cave
huh.
at the end because they found it when they went to
That's right.
discovered them. The flashlight was still there. They found a belt, and that was never talked about.
I know.
Was that tribal cloth that had tassels on it? That was like the Kunti
Right.
people, you know.
So, I mean, that right there, that should have been a big question mark for these people. Where
Yeah.
did this come from?
So it
Uh,
makes me wonder, if the Russian government knew that, it was really trying to control that
oh,
relationship
sure.
or how we view that relationship between indigenous people and
Right.
they
Yeah.
how it is, right?
Yeah. No, and it had something to do, I think, also with the area, and they were allowing them to live in that area, or I guess, and it not be considered to be Russia. And there was some talking back and forth with, or let's say, Soviet Union, because remember, it was the Soviet Union before it turned back to Russia again. But
Yeah.
they didn't agree with a lot, but they did with Amante. They were they let them do their own thing. I believe
Mhm.
that was said in there. So,
Yeah.
but depending on what you have watched on this, because there was also another movie about this. I noticed. I did
Yeah.
not watch it.
Oh.
So this is the only this, and I looked it up and I found some articles on it. But this was the only movie I watched, which was The Unknown Compelling Force.
Mhm.
And um, I don't know how I would have felt about it if I had a different feeling about it, but just because of the way that it was done, the way they brought all the information together, and the way that they explained it, and it seemed more professionally done, and it
Mhm.
seemed as though the answer is right there. That,
Yeah,
yeah,
because in the other documentaries, movies, everything, they've never explored the forensic evidence
right,
um,
right,
on their bodies.
yep,
They just, crush injuries. They did that by falling down the hill.
yeah,
And they
that's
actually
crazy. Yeah,
went
yeah,
to somebody who performed the autopsy and said and looked at the what do you call that when they examine the death note and the evidence and
oh, forensic evidence, you
yeah,
mean? Or, yeah,
yes,
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
and he was an expert and said there's no way that
hmm,
these kinds of injuries could happen,
yeah,
for the reasons that they say. They've
right,
never done that in all the years that
correct.
of all the documentaries I've watched or the
Hmm.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just made so much. It just
So maybe why don't you see if you can pull a card on the guy that there's a picture of this guy, and he's supposed to be the big cheese that's during 1959. He's up there and he's got this heavy winter coat on, but it's so big it looks like he's about 500 pounds. Have you seen that picture? It's crazy. Yeah,
oh,
and he's the one that closed the case, and I'm wondering, what was going
oh,
on in his mind.
okay.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
that?
uh-huh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
uh-huh. And you're right, Harry's mom. This is not a documentary. I mean, this is a documentary, but it was not an avalanche. If there was, it's secondary. I couldn't have done that kind of crushing for those people.
Right. And because they found their footsteps. I mean,
Right.
it was still in the snow. It wasn't covered up by an avalanche.
Right.
What I'm saying,
Which it would be. Yeah.
and the trees weren't covered up. That's why, the younger people were like, "There's no way that was an avalanche." And plus, they found a shamanic belt in the trees. Right.
That's really the. Sorry, I got my puppy on the floor, and I need to pick her up, and I keep disappearing, and I apologize. All right.
Okay, so who is that guy who closed the case?
He's like the general or something in the service, right?
Oh,
he was
KGB.
He was in the military. I know that. Yep. Maybe it was KGB. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the thing that was before the KGB. One or the other. Yeah.
Okay.
Ski poles were next to the tent. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that, Marie. Why was it not, it was untouched too, I believe. That's because they ran as fast as they could to get away from the tent.
Yeah. So this was he was a person of authority.
Uh-huh.
He was definitely a military person.
Yeah.
It was his job, no matter what the evidence was, it was his job to
close it down, right?
To turn it into something. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And there was so much. These are 2 5s here. There was so much argument, bickering, pettiness. But yeah, back then, that's what I'm getting is he was told to do this. He was
Get the investigation done. Yeah.
Yeah, just close it down, do whatever you have to do. We do not want any attention drawn to us and what is going on up in the sky.
Right. Because they didn't even think aliens. What they thought was the space program. And they didn't want people to know about. I mean, there's so many compelling reasons. And that's why I like this movie, because it examines every single one. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm also getting a hit that the shamanic, the Kunti people, they didn't understand what that was, what they were seeing in the sky.
Oh, and sure.
This was their sacred ground. These were the caves which they performed their ceremonies and they prayed, and all kinds of wild stuff happened up there. You feel the energy.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And that was like a trigger. It was like a sign. It was like, great. Right. These people have been presented to us for sacrifice.
Right. Oh, aren't we lucky? We got it. They arrived at the right time. Yeah, that kind of an idea. Yeah, I believe that. There's a place that's I can't remember exactly where it is. I don't know if it's in South America or if it's in Africa on the continent, but there's some people that have never seen anybody from modern day. And there was some people going in there to tell them apparently there was going to be a problem, like weather issue or whatever. And they brought in a helicopter, and these guys were shooting arrows at the helicopter. They didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly like that's, that's the country people. They really are. They're more primitive than the Muncie.
Right. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, you can work with the Muncie. The Muncie are friendly. They let them stay with them, I believe, when they went up there, and they hadn't gotten that far. But these people, I don't know, did they not? They didn't know about them, I'm guessing. They didn't know these people existed, because why would you go into an area where you know there are...
Oh, well, yeah. See, they never talked about it. Oh, are you there? You're frozen? Hello?
You were. It must be me. I don't know. Anyway, I'm thinking, why, if they must not have known about the country, because they would have, if I had known that there was warrior people that were going to kill me, or I could trip over, I wouldn't go in there. Would you?
Right. No.
Yeah.
That's what the government needs to be honest about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is the truth of things that happen.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how folks feel about Sasquatch. They think they're just, going to just horrible, evil
things.
Just want to eat them. And it's from the truth.
Though, you see these crazy things happen. Well, of course, crop circles show up, and nobody knows how that happens really. But also animal ritualistic killings where they take out their heads and eyes and tongues and stuff like that. And they're in irregular places. It's somebody's farm in Kansas or I don't know. And you ask yourself, who the hell is doing that? But I would say the Yeti, they live more in mountainous areas, don't they? If and
Well, Yeti is just another word for Sasquatch.
Right, but they live in mountainous areas, don't they?
Yeah. They're isolated.
They're not going to walk across a cornfield in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Lest they go through a portal. Like Skinwalker.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch, they see them quite.
Oh, that is a fascinating show. If anybody has watched that Skinwalker Ranch, ooh, is that ever creepy? People, I watched the first couple of them, and one of the guys that worked there didn't he have a heart attack or something? And
and
from some loud, he got hit in the head.
Brain injury, like his brain was expanding, or there's fluid, and it was just really like bizarre kinds of injuries where they weren't doing anything. I mean, they were just around. The radiation just spikes to levels, and
Yep. So J-Lo says, I'm feeling the Russians closed down to clean it up. And that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't want anybody talking about it. And, and you can't jump out of my arms, kiddo. All right. She's full of beans tonight is right. Honestly. Yeah. So anybody see any of the earlier stuff that's out there? I know that Jen did. I didn't. I'm being honest here. This just fascinated me so much that it was. So I made my husband watch it with me, which he was fascinated just as much as I was. But I really, all through it, I thought it was Sasquatch myself, because I didn't realize that they're what are they, herbivores? They just eat fruits and plants and stuff. They don't like.
Sasquatch?
Yeah.
Oh no, they eat deer and they eat meat.
Oh, they eat meat, but not people. Yeah, they don't go after people.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, they're just like people, but with a lot of hair.
With a lot of hair.
Sort of like that. Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to try one of those waxing things where they pull all the hair off and see how he looks. Yeah. But there's so many things out there that we don't know. And that Skinwalker Ranch, I had no idea about. If anybody's, what is that on Hulu? Is it Hulu that's on Skinwalker?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it is. If you get a chance to watch it, it's kind of creepy, but, and I have to tell you right from the get-go, I never watched any real scary movies like Exorcist or Halloween, or I don't like that stuff. That bothers me. Yeah, it really does. But stuff like this, where I'm trying to figure out what this is all about, I find it absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, see, I'm right with you. Exactly. Yeah.
So there is another show on Hulu called Sasquatch, and I watched the first episode, and I don't know, it was kind of hokey, but I think maybe I'll watch a couple more and see if I like it. But this was supposed to be in Northern California, where this guy, I don't know if he came face to face with it or I don't know, but he said a whole bunch of people knew that it existed there. So that was fascinating. Yeah. Yep. So I encourage you all to watch it. I think it's again, it's called An Unknown Compelling Force, and the way it's explained is really well done. The guy spends a lot of money going over there to do the research and take the film and talk to tons of people, tons of experts. A couple of them were kind of funny. One of them was a ex-FBI guy, and he just was like, "Yeah, I'm an ex-FBI guy." It's
oh, like, I know who that is. I know that guy, actually.
You do? You know him? Yeah, you know who he is. Okay. But he was kind of bland, though, wasn't he? He wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's on the History Channel, too? Thank you for telling us that. That's awesome. Okay. I'm big into these types of things. I love documentaries. I love learning all about different things. And this one just really, and I knew Jen would really be interested as well. And I'm glad she watched it because it
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
No, thanks for
Uh,
pointing me
yeah.
into the direction of another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, unless you have something else, Jen, it's a short one tonight. If you have no, I just wanted you guys mostly to know about it, to know that this documentary exists. It only came out in May, I believe, and that it's worth watching. Even though I've told a lot of what's going on in it, I still think it's worth watching. And some of you have seen some of the other stuff, so you can compare it and see what you think as well. So,
Oh, and we forgot to point out there was a few years there where they were pointing the finger at like sexual tension between all the kids.
That's right. That's right.
And
Yes.
they all ran out of the tent in there.
Yes. There was sexual tension, and there was, and they turned on each other. That was one of them. That's right. Yeah.
-degree weather.
Yeah. I'm really mad at you because you've been looking at her. I'm going to stab you. Yeah. I know. And if you knew, and they do explain a lot about those kids and some of their entries and stuff, and they seemed really level-headed. I mean, I didn't see that they were.
They're really bright. They were all college kids, and they were all doing this expedition because apparently they were there's programs in Russia where kids
and they want
achieve different levels by doing these really hardcore, intense expeditions. So it's not just these.
Yeah, I mean, let's go up this mountain today.
Really clever. Yeah,
right. And there was one older man. He was 38.
Yeah,
he wasn't. I don't say he's old, but he was older than them because they were like 19, 20, 21, something like that. Most of them. Yeah. And he was part of it, and he died as well. So
he had the most traumatic crush injuries on his body.
And maybe he fought them more than the others did. I'm wondering. That's very possible. He was working with it. Yeah. Hello, Susan Lynn. We're glad you're here. I hope you watch this movie too, called An Unknown Compelling Force, about this craziness in Russia back in 1959. Yeah. And I think that had it been anywhere else, we would have probably known about it a long time ago, in the 60s or 70s. But so all right.
Well, thanks for having me, Ali.
Thank you.
The coolest show.
Yeah. We're working it. Everybody take care and go watch the movie now. Okay.
All right.
I'm not getting any money from the guy. Okay. Bye-bye.